There are so many baby sunscreens on the market that it can be quite overwhelming to choose the right one. I'm Dr. Hannah Kopelman, and I'm going to run through ingredients that are safe and clean for your baby or kid. It's really important to protect your little one from the sun. Before we dive into my top sunscreen brand recommendations for your baby or toddler, I first want to go over the basics of why sunscreen is important and which ingredients that are safe and clean to look for in the store. So first of all, sunscreen is so important because you want to choose a sunscreen that is broad spectrum. That means you can protect your baby or toddler from UVA and UVB rays. UVA rays are the ones that cause premature aging and wrinkles. I know you probably think I'm totally crazy because I'm talking to you about applying sunscreen to a 6-month-old baby and you're thinking about wrinkles, but guess what? That's when the premature aging starts, and that's when sun damage starts. Also, you want to protect them from the UVB rays, which are the ones that cause sunburns. And believe it or not, so much of your sun damage later in life is actually from the sun that you got when you were younger or a kid. So I actually see a lot of people who come in who are like in their 60s and 70s and they have skin cancer and they're like, well, I don't really sit outside anymore. It's not from the sun that you got yesterday or the week ago. It's from the sun you got years ago. So start when you're younger. Try to get your kid to be excited about wearing sunscreen, encourage consistency, and try to teach them why sunscreen is so important to wear and make it a part of their daily routine. So what I do when I'm going to purchase a sunscreen for my baby cousins is I look for a sunscreen that is broad spectrum because I know it will protect them against UVA and UVB rays. I then try to pick a sunscreen that is at least 30 and above because this is the sun protective factor and it will tell you how well you're actually going to be protected from the sun. Optimal, I would say, is about SPF 50. Then I look to see if the sunscreen says water resistant on it. And I think water resistant is kind of like the best thing to choose for a child because they're going to be playing in the water or the pool and get wet, and you want that sunscreen to be protecting them when they're doing those activities. So as I mentioned earlier, I like to choose sunscreens that are mineral-based, also known as physical sunscreens. And this means they contain ingredients like zinc oxide or titanium oxide. And the reason I prefer mineral-based sunscreens is because they're more sensitive to your skin. And obviously, a lot of kids have sensitive skin or allergies or eczema, and they're prone to being itchy and sensitive or feel burning. So I like to steer towards caution and use mineral-based sunscreens. However, some people are okay using chemical-based sunscreens, and those chemical sunscreens usually contain ingredients like oxybenzone or octinoxate. These are just not as sensitive to the skin. The other thing I want to emphasize is I always try to choose sunscreens that are hypoallergenic or fragrance-free because I know they'll be less irritating to the skin and good for sensitive skin, which a lot of babies have. Also, I do want to mention that you do get adequate amount of vitamin D from the sun, even with sunscreen on. So many parents think like, oh, well, my baby needs vitamin D so their bones grow and they'll be okay. I promise you they're getting enough vitamin D to be healthy. Also, I know a lot of parents sometimes prefer using sunscreen sprays or sunscreen sticks because they're easy to get on their child, but I really prefer using creams or lotions because I know that you're getting adequate coverage and you're not missing an area. So here we go, my top sunscreen recommendations. First one is the Blue Lizard Australian sunscreen. This is a mineral-based sunscreen and it contains titanium dioxide 8% and zinc oxide 10%. It's also water resistant for 80 minutes, so it's great if you're playing outside in the water or getting sweaty. By the way, all baby sunscreens are also safe for the whole family. Obviously, if you're putting it on your baby, it's safe for you too. One really cool thing that I love about this sunscreen is that it actually the bottle will turn pink if it is exposed to dangerous UVB or UVA rays. So I thought that was really cool because you'll know oh, the bottle's turning pink. Make sure you apply your sunscreen. I thought it's pretty cool. I want to show you how it goes on. So yes, it is mineral based and it can leave a white cast, but it takes just some rubbing in to get rid of it. It doesn't have a smell. It's pretty lightweight. I don't think it looks oily. It's definitely one of my favorites. My next recommendation is something called Badger Baby. It contains uncoated zinc oxide 22.5%. This is also really safe for the reef and the environment, and it contains chamomile and calendula. What that means is it contains antioxidants that are good for decreasing the irritation on your skin and nourishing your skin. So in addition to protecting your skin from the sun, you're also protecting it with antioxidants from the environment. So it's SPF 40. It is hypoallergenic. It's vegan. It's gluten-free. As I said, it's reef-friendly. It's really great sunscreen as well. Also, it is 98% organic ingredients. So I just want to show you how this sunscreen goes on. It's different because it comes out really thick, like almost like, you can see that, it's like almost like a thick, very different than the rest of the sunscreens. And I know that might be like, oh, well, I don't want to use this sunscreen if it's so thick, but it actually rubs in really well. It just takes a little bit of rubbing. And as you can see, it doesn't leave such a white cast. It doesn't have much of a smell, and the smell is kind of refreshing. It smells like chamomile tea. So I really like this sunscreen. My next recommendation is by Coppertone. It's called Pure and Simple. So you probably heard of Coppertone because you probably used it when you were a baby. But now, fortunately, they're coming out with much more hypoallergenic products. This one is also mineral-based, and it contains zinc oxide, 24.08% zinc oxide. And it's very hypoallergenic. It's great for sensitive skin. The only thing about this one is it's very runny. So you have to really shake it, as you can hear that, like, it's really liquidy. And I'll show you, when I put it on my skin, it like totally just like pours out and runs everywhere. So just make sure where you're putting it, it's just not going to go running into your eyes. But it does rub in, doesn't have much of a white cast either, and doesn't really look oily or anything. So this is another great option. My next recommendation is by Eucerin. And Eucerin is usually known for their creams or lotions, but lately they've been coming out with sunscreens, and I think they're doing a really good job of them. And this one is Eucerin Baby Sensitive Mineral Sunscreen that has zinc oxide 24%. And it is hypoallergenic, it's paraben-free, dye-free, so great for sensitive skin. Also needs a little bit of shaking, but not as much shaking as the Coppertone. And let me show you how this one goes on. So a little bit runny, but not bad. And then rub it in. Obviously, the zinc oxide percentage is pretty high, so it does leave a little bit of a white cast. It's probably a little more oily feeling than the other sunscreens, but still, I really like it and recommend it. My next sunscreen recommendation for babies is by Aveeno. And Aveeno makes a lot of baby products, so they know what they're doing. And this is great for sensitive skin. It has zinc oxide, 21.6% in it. It's SPF 50, so it's at that optimal SPF that I really recommend. It's also water resistant and sweat resistant for up to 80 minutes, so great if you're going swimming or playing outside. And it also is hypoallergenic. So let me show you how this one goes on. So as you can see, it kind of takes a lot of rubbing to get in. To me, it feels a little bit like heavier on the skin and a little bit stickier than the other sunscreens, but I still enjoy wearing the sunscreen. Now, my last sunscreen recommendation is actually a chemical-based sunscreen. So it's different from the other ones I recommended today, which are mineral-based. And I know I said in the beginning of the video that I prefer mineral-based sunscreens because they're better for kids who have sensitive skin that's easily irritated. But I recommend La Roche-Posay if your kid is around 4 years or older, and it contains chemical sunscreen ingredients like avobenzone. However, it's still safe to use on kids with sensitive skin because it is fragrance-free. It also has cell ox shield ingredients, so it not only protects you against UVA and UVB protection with the SPF 50, but it also has antioxidants in it. It's also water resistant for up to 80 minutes and pretty easy to use. Give it a little shake. I'm going to show you how it looks on my skin. Doesn't really have a smell, it's mild, and as you can see, it rubs in quite nicely. It's not oily looking, doesn't leave much of a cast either. So this is great for kids and the rest of the family, but I recommend, as I said, using those more hypoallergenic sunscreens, mineral-based sunscreens on your baby and child. By the way, I do want to say that if you're trying any of these new sunscreen recommendations I gave you today, the first thing I suggest you do if you're trying it for the first time is do a little patch testing on your baby or child. So what that means is you actually take the sunscreen and you put it on the inside of their wrist just a little bit, rub it into that area, and see how they react. Give them like 24 hours. If there's no reaction, then great, continue to use it for the rest of their time and the rest of their life. But if there is a reaction, then you know not to use it in the future. So there you have it, my top sunscreen recommendations for babies and kids. Don't forget to apply sunscreen generously, so cover them from head to toe. Reapply every 2 hours or more often if they're swimming or outside. And don't forget to apply at least 15 to 30 minutes before they go outside. As always, don't rely solely on sunscreen to protect your baby or yourself from the sun. Use UPF protective clothing, wide brim hats, sunglasses, seek the shade, and keep your baby out of the sun if they're 6 months or younger, and at 6 months, immediately start applying sunscreen if they're going to be exposed to the sun. So there you have it. I hope I broke down for you the overwhelming amount of sunscreens on the market for babies. I want you to be able to go to the store and pick safe and clean ingredients that you feel comfortable using on your baby and toddler. If you have sunscreen recommendations that I didn't mention today, please share them in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.